Indonesia, a unique chain of islands, bursting with life. Pristine sands, misty rainforests, and a network of rivers provide a haven for many iconic creatures. However, this tropical paradise has also been overrun by cold-blooded beasts. Reptiles roam the seas, control the beaches, and even rule the air. Indonesia's mammalian paradise is also a dragon's domain. Indonesia is spread across a chain of 17,000 islands between Asia and Australia. Known as an archipelago, it's the largest cluster of islands in the world, running 5,000 kilometers along the equator, from the western tip of Sumatra to the western side of New Guinea. These islands are a hotbed of majestic landscapes and diverse wildlife, both on land and in the sea. While mammals have made home in most of Indonesia's rainforests, one group of creatures appears to have colonized the entire island chain. More than 700 species of reptile have made Indonesia their home, almost 1/5 of the world's total. In Indonesia, they outnumber mammals by over 100 species. Supremely stealthy, staggeringly beautiful, and often surprisingly affectionate. Many of these hunters appear unchanged since the days of the dinosaur. Why Indonesia is such a paradise for these cold-blooded creatures may no longer be such a mystery. Of all the reptiles that have conquered Indonesia's islands, none is more formidable than the saltwater crocodile. While the name suggests a saltwater existence, it's equally at home in freshwater habitats. And Indonesia provides an enormous mix of both. With powerful jaws, lined with over 60 teeth, and unchanged for millions of years, it's the epitome of the cold-blooded killer. Reaching up to 6 meters long, and often weighing in at more than a ton, the saltwater crocodile is the planet's largest living reptile. It conjures fear in the eyes of many that frequent the riverbanks. The proboscis monkey knows to avoid this predator at all costs. Males sport the biggest nose of all the primates. As well as an aid in attracting females, It also amplifies their vocalizations. Even though they're strong swimmers, adults still choose their moments carefully when crossing a river. Juveniles are not quite so streetwise and can provide an easy meal for a hungry croc. The adults spot the danger that lurks beneath, and the male's noses are pressed into action. Their alarm calls resonating through the forest. Lost in play, the youngsters are oblivious to the commotion. Saltwater crocodile jaws are over 3 times stronger than a lion's and 18 times stronger than our own. Even the largest proboscis monkey would stand no chance. In the melee, one nervous teenager attempts to cross the river, but falls short, distracting the crocodile. Fortunately, this alerts the juveniles, who scramble back to the safety of the trees. Yet this missed feeding opportunity allows this powerful predator to focus its efforts elsewhere. Despite their reputation, crocodiles also exhibit a much softer side. Below the surface lies the perfect stage for their aquatic courtship ritual. Blowing bubbles at each other expresses a mutual interest. With a little additional backstroking from him, the female is suitably impressed and allows him to mate with her. He's almost 3 times her size and could easily crush her. But he shows a surprising tenderness that's rarely seen among some mammals. In around 6 weeks' time, this female will return to the riverbanks to dig a nest and lay as many as 90 eggs. Over the last 60 million years, shifting tectonic plates and volcanic eruptions have shaped the Indonesian archipelago. Thousands of scattered islands make it one of the most geographically complex tropical regions on Earth. Lower sea levels once connected land masses, which allowed animals to move freely across the region. Eventually, sea levels rose to isolate the new islands and their inhabitants, creating the diversity that we see today. Some islands continue to change, while others just bear the scars of a geologically violent past. Komodo Island is located in the south of the archipelago, within a small island chain at the junction of 2 continental plates. Here, significant volcanic activity formed jagged island peaks. This barren landscape may appear hostile to life, but it is in fact the perfect habitat for dragons. Reaching 3 meters in length and weighing up to 90 kilograms. The Komodo dragon is the largest lizard on the planet. Armor-plated skin acts as natural chainmail, and their whip-like tails can swipe with incredible force. Despite their lethal looks and muscular swagger, they spend up to 70% of their morning basking in the tropical sunlight, harnessing the sun's energy to warm their cold-blooded bodies. Temperatures here can reach over 40 degrees Celsius. In contrast to other Indonesian climes, this region is one of the driest, where the sun scorches the land for over 7 months of the year. Although as little as 800 millimeters of rain falls during the short monsoon season, this supports hardy pockets of thorny vegetation, which in turn provides food for water buffalo and deer. And where there are deer, dragons can often be found. These giant reptiles appear to live harmoniously with their fellow island residents. But every few weeks, hunting instinct kicks in. Sitting at the top of the food chain, this dragon strikes from the undergrowth at anything foolish enough to drop its guard. A minor flesh wound this time. This deer thinks he's escaped relatively unscathed. But the dragon knows otherwise. It has a secret weapon lurking in its jaws. On the western side of the region, during times of lower sea levels, many of Indonesia's islands were connected to the Asian continent. This ancient landmass was known as Sundaland. As well as providing a migration route for animals, it allowed the spread of trees that originated in India. Over the years, they eventually dominated Southeast Asia's tropical forests. Covering 750,000 square kilometers, Borneo is the third largest island on the planet. And still contains some of the country's oldest rainforests. Known as dipterocarps, these trees can grow up to 60 meters tall and can live for more than 500 years. As many as 240 tree species can be crammed into an area equivalent in size to a football pitch. 10 times more than in forests of the Northern Hemisphere. During this large tree colonization, certain reptiles began to evolve in a way that would revolutionize their movement within the forest. At around 20 centimeters long, the Draco lizard is a master of disguise. Pigments in its skin enable it to rapidly transform from bright green to shades of brown, camouflaging itself against almost anything in its habitat. Sharp claws cling fast to the trees, allowing it to move about with ease. These adaptations are key in avoiding predators, as well as an aid in ambushing their staple diet of ants. However, sometimes it pays to be visible. Males maintain a territory of up to 3 trees in the canopy. Any female that ventures onto his patch in search of food is fair game for courting. He extends a brightly colored stretch of skin connected to his neck, known as a dewlap. Before strutting a set of complementary dance moves, it appears this lady is worth winning over. Realizing she has company, the female flashes her own more modest dewlap as a warning to back off. Determined to persevere, the male darts from branch to branch, chasing her in an attempt to change her mind. If successful, he could sire up to 5 youngsters, passing his genes on to the next generation. However, his efforts appear to be in vain. This tree is lined with tasty ants, and this female is only interested in dining out alone. In these vast rainforests, sources of food can be scattered far and wide. Sporadic fruiting lures insects, which in turn attract reptiles to certain branches. And not just the legged variety. Reaching over 1 meter in length, paradise tree snakes are also very much at ease in their treetop homes. Preferring the mid-canopy, they're usually found on the edge of the forest, where it's easier to soak up the energizing sun. Age and sex determines their pattern and coloration, varying from black to green. Incredibly strong muscles enable them to cling to branches. And the curved underside allows them to grip to tree protrusions as small as 1 millimeter high. In these rainforests, certain reptiles have discovered the ideal way to conserve energy, yet still reach their destination. And this snake is no exception. They're so strong, they can suspend their bodies out into the canopy below. Selecting their target, they maneuver into position. before taking a leap of faith. Also known as paradise flying snakes. They're one of only 5 species on the planet capable of gliding. And in a fraction of a second, can double the width of their bodies. They achieve this flattened position by spreading their ribs before undulating gracefully for up to 25 meters. Unbeknown to the Draco lizard, waving his dewlap and chasing females, has unwittingly advertised his whereabouts to a nearby predator. The paradise flying snake is a lizard eater. Using its large eyes, it surveys the environment and pinpoints its quarry. But the Draco pulls another trick from its arsenal. Destination locked on, and just in the nick of time, it too can play the flying game. Named after the Latin word for dragon, Draco lizards have a retractable wing, helping them glide through the air. Unlike the snake, folds of skin connected to their outstretched ribs allow them to skillfully swoop down to land right on target. This unique body form means Draco lizards never need to touch the ground, except for when females lay eggs during the breeding season. With escape plan perfectly executed, this male can return to traveling between his territory of trees and continue his quest for a female. While reptiles were colonizing Indonesia via land and sea, another group of creatures arrived via the air. Though warm-blooded and now distinct from reptiles, modern-day birds are surprisingly the descendants of the dinosaur, possibly the most revered group of reptiles ever to walk the planet. Birds have infiltrated every island on the archipelago. And as Indonesia's islands formed and shifted over time, different populations became isolated from one another. They evolved independently, creating the extraordinary diversity that we see today. "17% of the world's bird species inhabit Indonesia's islands. As there's so little flow of air within the region's dense rainforests, trees rely heavily on birds to disperse their seeds. The rhinoceros hornbill is one of the largest birds of the archipelago. Its colorful casque, resembling a second bill, is a feature shared with the duck-billed dinosaurs that walked the planet over 65 million years ago. While many bird species deposit seeds over a small home range, hornbills can travel up to 15 kilometers when foraging for fruit, meaning seeds are often deposited far away from where they were consumed. And this plays an important role in spreading plant species evenly throughout the rainforest. Back on Komodo Island, one predator is set to reap the rewards of its earlier attack. The wounded deer has grown increasingly weak, and the dragon has stuck close to its side. Unbeknown to the victim, the lizard's secret weapon has been at work. Saliva laced with venom has penetrated the deer's wounds, attacking him from the inside, preventing the wounds from clotting and causing the victim's blood pressure to plummet. This deadly dose sends its body into a state of shock, rendering the deer too weak to continue its fight for life. The Komodo always knew that it was just a matter of time. Other dragons soon get wind of the potential feast ahead. A two-pronged tongue smells in stereo, catching odors of rotting flesh that drift on the air up to 4 kilometers away. Honing in on their target, these otherwise solitary beasts only need to eat large prey about once a month and congregate to take advantage of the bounty on offer. The feeding frenzy begins. Lost in the moment, they rarely fight over a meal. Several additional joints in their jaws allow them to open their mouths unusually wide. Their stomachs can expand to accommodate 80% of their own body weight in a single sitting. While large mammalian predators waste about a third of a carcass, the Komodo will leave just over 10%. They guzzle down anything, from skin to hooves, making them one of the most efficient predators on the planet. Long before Indonesia's island chain formed, some ancient creatures swapped their entirely aquatic home for a partially terrestrial life. Their descendants became known as the amphibians. With almost 300 species now found in Indonesia, the humid environment of the rainforests provides the perfect conditions for modern-day amphibians. Distantly related to reptiles, they share their cold-blooded nature. However, they need to keep their skin moist. Some tree frogs create foam nests on foliage that overhang streams or pools. Whipped up by her back legs, this female uses copious amounts of mucus before depositing her eggs safely inside. About 10 days later, tadpoles hatch and drop out of the nest into the water below, and will remain waterbound until reaching adulthood, when they embark on a land-dwelling existence. A frog's life cycle gives insight into the challenges that were faced by early creatures when they moved from the sea to land. When the first reptiles evolved, they developed scaly, impermeable skin, along with the ability to lay hard-shelled eggs. This prevented them and their future young from drying out. As a result, they were freed from water, allowing them to radiate across prehistoric Earth. Warm-blooded mammals and birds process food in order to function and to maintain a constant body temperature. For reptiles, heat is not generated through digestion, so they rely purely on the sun to keep their bodies warm. As a result, their food requirements are much lower, making them far more energy efficient, requiring only 10% of the energy that mammals of a similar size need. And in Indonesia, hot temperatures persist all year round, creating the perfect environment for these solar-powered reptiles to thrive. Following her earlier liaison with a male, this female saltwater crocodile is ready to lay her eggs. With strong hind legs, she constructs a mound by the river's edge, using nearby vegetation. Before gently laying her eggs inside. They rest in a chamber raised above the ground to protect her brood from flooding. Over time, the vegetation decays, a process that also produces heat. This is vital for the embryo's development. The sex of her babies is yet to be determined. Incubation temperatures play a vital role in dictating whether the hatchlings will be male or female. Warmer temperatures produce more males, while cooler ones produce females. She'll guard this nest for the next 3 months. In Indonesia, some reptiles have even adapted to make the smallest of islands their home. Covering half a square kilometer, one small island off the coast of Borneo has become the perfect home for a large population of sea snakes. This rocky, boulder-strewn shoreline provides the perfect hideaway for these semi-aquatic creatures. Here in safe, dark crevices, they mate, lay their eggs, and digest their food. Known as yellow-lipped sea kraits, they have a shock of bright scales across their snout and mouth. During the 3-month breeding season, several smaller males cluster around females, waiting for an opportunity to mate. But mating isn't the only activity on the agenda. Females can be over double the length of males, measuring 1.5 meters and weighing almost 2 kilograms. The majority of her body weight is dedicated to strong muscles, which push off the rocky environment, driving her forward. But she can't afford to hang about. With the threat of being taken by avian predators, she runs the gauntlet to the inviting waves. Down here, she's in her element. Valve nostrils and salt glands help her to transition to this aquatic world. Journeying across the sharp barnacled shore can take its toll on her scales. So a little preening is in order. Every few weeks, sea snakes will shed their skin. The hard, rough surfaces of coral create the perfect scratching post and provide an anchor, allowing the snake to swim out of a redundant slough. As well as a way of replenishing damaged skin, molting helps to rid marine parasites and algae from her body, a universal process in reptiles, vital for their survival. Indonesia's vast coastline contains one of the largest coral reefs on the planet, covering an area of almost 50,000 square kilometers. The submerged edges of these islands provided the perfect surface for corals to establish, forming fringing reefs that have created the most diverse marine region in the world. These are foraging grounds for some of the largest marine reptiles on the planet. Weighing up to 150 kilograms and measuring 1 meter in length, green turtles frequent Indonesia's reefs and shores, whilst on the migration highway between the Pacific and Indian Oceans. However, these reefs also provide a slightly more unusual function to some of its visitors. Usually leading a solitary existence, green and hawksbill turtles congregated to buff up. Coarse coral heads are a perfect exfoliant for scraping barnacles from their shells. The finishing touches are completed by hungry cleaner fish that pluck smaller parasites and algae from their bodies. This two-way relationship ensures the turtles are clean and the fish are fed. This turtle can now continue on its vast migration across the oceans. Back on dry land, chirps from the vegetation stir the saltwater crocodile mother into action. Usually when prey is abundant, she feeds almost every week. But for the past 90 days, she's religiously guarded her nest, with barely a bite to eat. Tonight it's time for her babies to enter the water. In response to their calls, she excavates the hatchlings from the nest. A sharp protrusion on their snout, known as an egg tooth, helps them break open their shells. Any eggs that need a little extra help are gently rolled between the mother's jaws to encourage hatching. Once free, she carefully carries the youngsters to the water's edge, where they'll stay close to her side for several months. Despite measuring just under 30 centimeters long, they live up to their reputation from the outset. With lightning reflexes and razor-sharp teeth, nothing smaller than these mini crocs is safe. In 8 months, these hatchlings will have doubled in size and be big enough to go it alone. However, it'll be at least another 10 years until they're ready to find a partner and have youngsters of their own. Indonesia is a reptile paradise. On land, beneath the sea, and in the air. The unrelenting tropical heat energizes cold-blooded bodies, while an abundance of other creatures provide food for all to share. Some residents have remained unchanged for millions of years. Others defy gravity and take to the air. While Indonesia is an ideal home to the furred and the feathered, it's also a perfect dragon's domain.